So today we're going to be talking a little bit about annotated bibliography and moving our entire presentation forward a little bit. We're down to about 2 weeks before final products are due, and so we want to be moving forward in this presentation and showing our first product, which is our annotated bibliography, by I would say Tuesday next week. And then getting into our final product, I'd say by the latest about the 25th of May, which gives us a little bit of time for some recasts and some things like that. So what we want to do first is I'm going to just go through. I'm actually doing a project very similar to this in one of my courses. I'll be doing some actual action research at some point as well. But just to reiterate, I'm going to my online resources, which are actually very similar to yours. In fact, opposing viewpoints and EBSCOhost pop up in Vanderbilt's databases. And I'm going to look very specifically for my topic, high school online education. I could narrow this down. I can do a lot of different things with this. I can actually use a lot of different versions of searches. And you can see I've already put on some filters, so I only get peer-reviewed journals, so I get the best possible information. I'm only looking at a very specific number of places, and yet I'm still getting 438,000 results, that's pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and show you, like I've scouted some of these out, and I'm going to be reading them this week, but I'm going to go and inside my my search here, this does take me to EBSCOhost. That's where I would get the full text. I do have a citation, which I'm using APA, so it's really easy. I just copy my citation. I'll show you where that shows up a little later. Hush, Mark Twain. And then it even gives me a nice little description. Of course, for you guys, you want to be writing your own. You're still kind of working on that process. But this is a really nice way, if you're doing good research, to just see, like, does this brief description, is it going to get me the type of thing that I want, or is it gonna not be a good use of my time? So when I read this, I'm looking for, like, oh yeah, asynchronous versus synchronous education. Absolutely. We're going to be looking at affordances and constraints of teaching. Those are all down my my alley of my research question. And then it even gives me some keywords that it looked for: online teaching, et cetera, and underline some big things. So very useful. Again, the databases are going to really point me in strong directions. And so what I'm going to do with this information, I obviously have copied all that down into my desktop, so I have PDFs of all that where I can read at my leisure. I'm usually a paper person, where I like to highlight and do everything on paper, but I don't have access to all of my copying equipment right now, so I can't do that. But that's okay. I can still use all of my online tools. So now, if I followed this link, I would get to here's one of the sources that I found. I'm going to have to spend a little bit of time reading this and marking it up, obviously. Now I'm going to go ahead and move to my Word docs that I'm working with. And the first one is the annotated bibliography. You could see, even though I'm not turning this into a teacher, the fact that I'm doing really hard research and I need to remember all of the sources that I've used is really important to me. And I'm definitely going to be using citations. So I've gone ahead and made my citations first. Super easy, copy and paste from my databases. Again, you guys are writing this up. I went ahead and copied it because that's going to help me remember it just as well, because I'm going to be reading these pretty thoroughly. And then, of course, I'm going to put all of my sources in alphabetical order based on the first thing that you see here. So Kennedy, Kirby, Koning, and then Murphy, and then Williams. I did put a little bit of extra spacing in between my sources so that, like, I think if I didn't put this spacing here, the citation would be up here and the body would be down here, and I didn't quite like that. So annotated bibliography, I'm not turning this into a teacher, but you are turning this into me. So let's go through it really briefly. So the goal is to have 5 pieces of information, 5 sources from credible places. And you're just going to put that into a document, very similar to this document. I'm going to even put this up on Classroom as a reference for you. It's going to have your name, the course, and then annotated bibliography. And then you're just going to launch right into, this is my first source. I have proper citation here, something that we've been practicing all year. And then here is my brief description about what it's about. Again, this is a professional description. It's very long. This is an article that's incredibly long. What am I looking for you? I'm looking for a clear main idea and 2 supporting details. So about half this size at the very most. You're going to have 5 of them for me. And this is going to be your proof to me that you've done the research. This is a significant step in our whole process, okay? So making sure you turn this into me with the research. We're going to say our deadline for that, if you're participating at this point, is going to be Tuesday next week, okay? Tuesday next week. And that'll give you today, tomorrow, and even Friday on our weekly meet, and then Monday and Tuesday to get that done. So that's 5 days for 5 sources. Even if you haven't started the project yet, you'd still be able to do that. Okay, kind of moving forward, just a little bit. We're going to talk about this more next week, but I'm going to expect a research outline from you. And the outline's going to look exactly like this. Again, your name, the course, outline for research, and it's going to start with your research questions. So some of you are still working on research questions. You know what? I'm still working on my research question. I definitely have some places where I want to firm this up, and it's going to change. The more evidence I get, the more my research question is going to become a little more specific. Notice that it's not linear at all. Why are students placed in online or distance learning programs as opposed to traditional classrooms? Well, we're going to have lots of different reasons, lots of different options there, but that's going to build up the real question that I have. Are students who are using online programs receiving an equal education to students who receive traditional classroom education? So this is my real question that I'm asking. Again, I might rephrase that. I might look at, depending on who's getting in there, are they receiving a quality education? I'm going to have to do things like define quality education. Okay, those are all things that I'm going to have to do as I build a real research paper. You guys are not going that far. Now I'm going to come up with my evidence, right? So if my evidence is this is coming from where? Well, it's coming directly from your sources and your annotated bibliography. So if I have a source that indicates that no, absolutely not, students are not getting the same quality of education, then I'm going to put that source here, right? And I'm going to put like a line from that source here, and that's going to end up building into my claim. Okay, and my claim is going to essentially say yes or no. They are or are not based on this evidence, and then we're going to talk a little bit more about this document with warrants. Okay, we're going to talk about that next week, and we're going to build this very simple document, very complex, but simple in the delivery next week. You can see we're not writing a whole paper. We're essentially writing one big question, one very serious position. So one of the last things we're going to do is this position. Evidence, evidence, evidence. At least 3 of the sources I want you to really use. You can use more. I'm going to expect 3. And then warrant, warrant, warrant. Warrants are the hardest part, guys, so we're going to talk about that next week. Again, you have to have that research question well developed to do your research. So I know a couple people are still struggling with that research question. We need to talk about that. But if you have your research question, you have your research done, and you can go ahead and fill all this out. I'm going to make an assignment, an official assignment with a due date and everything for that annotated bibliography, and then we'll start working on this next week. All right. As always, if you have questions, we're going to leave a place for questions, and I hope you do ask questions. Your questions should be limited to the assignment itself this time around. So if you have a question about the assignment or a question about format or procedure or where to go or any of those types of things, please feel free to put that into Classroom. And we're going to be good with all of that information. All right, take care, guys. I will see you in class on Friday.